Hey guys, Romanian Reaper here. So I've just got done watching Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. This is of course on Netflix and is the fourth installment in the franchise, coming to us 30 years after the terrible third film in which everyone involved knew the script was weak, but child killer John Landis thought that if Eddie Murphy was on form, it would elevate it. Of course, Murphy wasn't, and in fact was just kind of depressed by the whole thing. But let's be real, even if he was on form, there's no way he's elevating that script. But I still had some hope that this would be a lot better, even with it being a Netflix original, not the highest mark of confidence given the amount of slop they churn out, the new straight to DVD basically. But given that we are now in the golden age of legacy sequels, coming after the likes of Top Gun Maverick, I had some hope that this would at least be half decent. But is this a worthy and justified lead sequel? Let's find out. So the film sees Axel Foley still very much doing his thing, bringing justice to the streets of Detroit in his old-fashioned, reckless, maverick way. Then, one day, out of the blue, he gets a call from his old pal Billy Rosewood in Beverly Hills, who's now a private investigator. And Rosewood tells him that his estranged daughter Jane, now a lawyer, is caught up in a case involving a dead, potentially dirty cop, and so Axel heads out to Beverly Hills to make some headway into the case and also potentially patch things up with his daughter. So it's worth noting that at a point in this film's development, Adil and Bilal, the two guys that made the recent Bad Boys movies, were involved with this. Obviously, that never happened, and instead we have what I believe is a first timer. It's kind of shame. I would have liked to see what those two would have done with this, but honestly, what we got, I actually enjoyed. It's obviously not as good as the first, but it's nowhere near as bad as the third. In fact, I'd say it's about on par with the second. In fact, I'd go so far as to say as I'd maybe even slightly give this one the edge over the second. It's a fun film, and it's worth noting that unlike most legacy sequels, this acts more just as a sequel rather than just rehashing stuff from the earlier films. It actually takes the characters and the world in new directions that actually feel fresh and interesting. Like, we've got Axel still very much his old self in a world that doesn't look as fondly on his maverick way of policing. It's a very interesting arc overall, and it's a very interesting narrative framing device. He's still very much the same old guy, but he's older and not necessarily wiser. And you've got a sort of sweet, if pretty predictable, late sequel staple arc of Axel trying to patch things up with his estranged daughter, who he's not seen for about 20 years. It's sweet, but you know exactly where that's gonna go. Let's be real. And there's some fun little callbacks to earlier films, whether it be the likes of Surge returning, or even like lines like "You can never have too much firepower," or even a little sly bit of dialogue alluding to the fact that everyone knows the third film was terrible, and even some beloved songs from the earlier films make their return here. Stuff like that. It's fan service, but it's it's not just, hey, remember that? You know, it's actually like feels done with a level of sincerity, and I mean, it helps as well. There are some great jokes here that, whether it be Axel's trademark thing of blagging his way into any scenario, or even an extended gag involving Jupiter ascending. Remember that film? And even a gag involving Axel struggling with the fact his daughter's legal name is now Saunders. And It obviously doesn't quite hit the fast talking, snappy high of the first, but there's actually a fair amount of gags here that do land. And it wouldn't work without the cast being on form. Like Eddie Murphy, is back to, his fast talking, vulgar best as Axel. Again, not quite to the extent of the first, but he's clearly having a lot of fun back doing his thing. And yes, you also have the return of Judge Reinhold as Rosewood and John Ashton as Taggart. You know, Taggart being older and just generally tired of everything, and a very fun straight man role. Although, admittedly, I would like to see a bit more of Rosewood. Like, don't get me wrong, he's still very fun here, but he feels almost a bit sidelined for most of the film. You've also got some new additions here. You got Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Detective Abbott, who reluctantly is partnered with Axel, and and I like their dynamic, seeing them, learning from each other's life experiences, and they get plenty of funny moments too with their little bickering. You also got Taylor Page as Axel's daughter Jane. She's actually a kind of likable character, and there's a sort of interesting contrast between her, a very professional lawyer who, defends, the very criminals that her father would, very recklessly put behind bars. That's a sort of interesting thread. And you've also got on villain duties Kevin Bacon as this very smug, crooked cop, Captain Grant. He's a really fun villain here, and it is just great seeing Kevin Bacon and stuff once again. And you've also got some super fun action scenes, whether it be an opener involving a snowplow, a shootout on the roads of Beverly Hills, and even a daring escape via helicopter. They're very entertaining, and the commitment to practicality does ground it, and the film does look good overall, with the real locations, in direct contrast with the awful green screens of the third film. On score duties, you have Lauren Balfe, and he does a very good job of modernizing the iconic Axel F theme, sort of retaining the essence of that original cue, but also, doing his thing with it. It sounded good, and remember, you do actually get the original original theme back as well. That was pretty nice. And it all builds to a third act, which I think kind of dips its toes into rehash territory with, the big centerpiece action scene being a shootout in a Beverly Hills mansion. Much like the climax of the original film. And yeah, it always was kind of a shame that they were dipping their toes a bit into legacy sequel rehash territory. But it was a very fun set piece, and had some great character payoffs that did right by the characters, and did kind of leave a bit of a smile on my face. And yeah, overall, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, it's not as good as the first, obviously, but it's nowhere near as bad as the third. In fact, actually serves as a pretty solid, very entertaining late addition to the franchise, and it is a surprisingly good time. Honestly, if this had gone to cinemas, I actually would have paid to see it. Unfortunately, it's gonna be relegated to the Netflix algorithm as content. But it is an enjoyable film overall, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. Have you seen Beverly Hills Cop Axel F? What did you think of it? And well, do you like the callbacks? Do you like the new characters? What's your favorite film in the franchise? Are you, very much with the consensus that the first is the best? Or are you a staunch defender of the third? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.